Good morning, everybody. And this is Julia Gambali with Digital Media Sync. We have had just a really fun and very busy January with Digital Media Sync. So we've had many guests on. We want to continue that trend. So we're definitely doing that today. And I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. But in the meantime, what I want to do is just kind of tell you who I am, where I'm from, um, where I work out of, where this live stream is from, and what's coming up next. So my name is Julia Gambali. I am with Digital Media Sync. I've been running Digital Media Sync for 10 years, sometimes with partners, sometimes not with partners. And now it's part of the Known Live family. So it's one of three live streams that are available. Um, I think one of the things that we're going to talk about today, the theme is definitely evolution. So Digital Media Sync has evolved. I know that's Zef's favorite word from being an in-person networking type of event to we were doing Zoom, and that really wasn't doing it for me. Um, we wanted it to be a larger conversation. And so now we've been live streaming and we've have over 60 episodes now that can be found on nhvknown.com. So I'm actually not live streaming out of Known today or for the past month, but Known is open. It's a co-working space as well, and it's at 139 Orange Street in New Haven. Um, I wanted to also let you know about another event that's coming up later this week that's part of the Known Live family, and it's Connection Corner, hosted by Barb Nangle. And this is just going to be really a lot of very fun, innovative, informative information coming out to you. And we have a program called Knownpreneurs, and we are in the throes of preparing for our third cohort. We have guests from our second cohort. I'm putting my glasses on because I cannot read things anymore. Um, we're going to be hearing from Shamalal, and Felicia. They have Felicia Pringle. They have businesses that are in the wellness and food sphere. So Chanel has Healing Springs Wellness that she's working on that business right now, and Felicia Pringle owns Exquisite Flavors Catering. So they will each talk about their experiences growing their businesses and being part of the Knownpreneurs Growth Lab. So we have a lot to cover, and this is just going to be very rambunctious today because I am going to be bringing on two guests. I'm bringing on Zef. Zef, now you have to be rambunctious for me, right?
Ta-da!
That was going to be the thing, right? And I'm going to be bringing on Shannon.
Hi! Good morning!
Good morning! Good morning! Good morning!
So,
did we wake you up, Julia?
I'm wait.
Because Shannon and I, most of the time,
I'm
we
doing
do that.
good because you know what? I haven't even had coffee today. Just the fact that we are going to be talking about something that I think we're all very passionate about, that we're all really working on. And the word that I used, right, was evolve. Each of us in our own right have evolved our businesses, have evolved in the way we work and that sort of thing. So let's start there, Zef and Shannon. Zef, I'll start with you. How have you been evolving? It's still the first month of a new year. Every time I talk to you, you're doing something different.
She doesn't stay still. She just
I was like, what do I call you? What do I say? You're working again.
That's a great start. See, that's a great segue. So maybe I'll just say quickly, what I've been doing, and also, how I carry this title right now because I feel it's so in tune with what I'm doing. Hey everybody, definitely Zef Zen here. So good to be back at Digital Media Sync. I always tell Julia, hey, can you push the show a bit later? Because I don't know if I can wake up, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, always seems like, you know.
I am so excited because, for many of you who have seen me in, the digital space as a live broadcast producer. So I just added on a simple virtual events producer or event tech navigator to my title because I feel like, Julia, what I've been doing in the past probably a year and a half to two, since everybody started building a new muscle when it comes to virtual events, right?
Right.
Post pandemic or during pandemic, I realized the two big challenges is how do I create a virtual event experience that people just want to stay on and watch and be a part of this,
Yeah.
right? And also the other one is just kind of like there's so much technology. And I realized in every project that Shannon and I work, we find that we do have to take the time to help folks out there to experience the technology the way it was built, or find creative ways to create that magical experience. So that's what I've been doing. So as a live broadcast and virtual events producer, I work with event creators who are just looking to level up the virtual event experience or hybrid event. And we're going to talk a lot about that also today, right? Because I used to joke about this. Shannon knows, and I think Julie, you've heard about this. I remember the days when people came to me and go like during the pandemic, the past 2 years, hey, what about hybrid events? And in the event space, this is becoming like a huge conversation. And I'm looking at that like, wait, I think I did it backwards. I think I probably am the godmother of hybrid events, because I remember being in those networking rooms and facilitated those networking events in person. And I got really fed up. I'm like, there must be a better way that I can save time, money, and create some balance for life.
Right.
And then I played around with event technology. At that time was broadcasting, streaming technology. And I don't know, fast forward almost a decade now that we're here and everyone's talking about virtual events and hybrid events. And I'm like, I don't feel left out. Yay. So that's basically what I'm focusing on, this year.
Yeah, and then Shannon, you did more than kind of play around with the technology, right? You created a platform, and that has evolved. So tell me a little bit about what you do, how that kind of moved into that space, and then how your platform has evolved.
Oh, muted.
We don't have sound. Where's your sound?
We have the mute on.
Muted.
I always
It's
do the
almost
mute
like
in
a
case-
must do when you have a stream, right? Because check.
I always turn the mute on because I have a puppy and sometimes he runs around making snorting sounds and I don't want to make interruptions when I'm not talking. So I have to remember. So hi everybody, I'm Shannon Daniels. I don't have a cool hashtag in front of my name like Zef. We're gonna have to work on that one.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I am really excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm the founder and CEO of Encaptive. Encaptive is my brainchild. It came out of my head because I'm a communication nerd at heart. I have a master's in interpersonal communication. I taught public speaking and communication, both professionally and at the college level. And then I spent the majority of my corporate career running sales and marketing departments. And as part of that, a big part of what we did to execute was attend events, showcase at events, as well as plan and host events. And so I've been around the events industry for, 25 years or so at this point in time with everything that I've been doing. And I've watched it evolve from different aspects. And one of the big problems I had was when you go into a presentation or at an event or something, you are sitting there as an audience member just getting talked at and you can't be part of the conversation. And so Encaptive really evolved out of, I wanted to bring the audience into the conversation, make it two-way, make them part of it, make it immersive. But I also wanted to make it measurable, more engaging and interactive, as well as increase the ROI of the events. So having the data and analytics around who was there, as well as convert on that in the moment excitement when people in the room, whether it's buy my book or schedule a consultation with me or whatever your call to action might be, giving your audience the ability to do that right then and there. And so, and Captive was really built for the in-person events market. But then as COVID came along and stuff, we had to rethink a bit how we were delivering our product. And so we built out a virtual events platform where you can host conferences and events and networking and all kinds of really cool things. So it's been really exciting. It's been a lot of work to evolve it and change it over the past couple of years since COVID happened, but it's also been really exciting and a lot of fun to bring us into a new market. And of course, I had to reach out to no other than the fabulous Zef Zan when all of this is going on. Zef and I actually met giving presentations at a live event where we were both speaking, and I heard Zef speak and I was like, I have to know this woman. She's incredible. And so I knew she's been a live streaming maven forever. And so when I really got into this, she was one of the first people I reached out to, and we really reconnected, and we've been working closely together ever since. So
yeah, and I noticed that. And then, of course, today or the past couple of weeks, I reached out to Zef and I said, this topic, this is definitely where I have to have Zef and Shannon, you as well, on, because from the perspective of both doing the speaking, right, but then having the technology available and the platform available in order to, oh, look at that, you have props.
We came prepared. We have it within reach. This is what we're going to share with everyone out there too, right?
So I have Emma the goldfish here.
Yes, yeah. I have her goldfish too. Ta-ta-da! Anyways.
Oh my goodness.
We're such disruptors.
The next time I'm going to be like, can you send me some of those? Yeah, it's like, I have puppies. I also have puppies too. Off in the other room. Hopefully they're not going to come to the office door. So, yeah, when I was thinking about, like, you're always my go-to, Zef, when I say we want to talk about like virtual events and trends and that sort of thing. But I think what you two are doing right now is just, I want to talk about that a little bit later. But Zef, you had talked about an article that you had been looking at, and do you want to just present on that a little bit?
I think we Shannon and I agreed that we kind of did a few articles, and one of these articles popped up, right? But we kind of see, I'm like, as we're reading, I'm like, yeah, this is what we've been talking for a long time. So that was a guide for us. But what came from that read was, how can we share with our audiences, how to create an impactful virtual and hybrid event in the world that we live in now, right? So that's why I write, if some of you are catching my post and my share post, I say, are you still doing events like it's the 80s? Because if you are, maybe you want to stop it right now, because things have changed so much, right? And technology is a big part of it. And I think we are here, we as in Shannon and I here today, to kind of share what we've read, what we're learning, continue to learn on a daily basis, and from our experiences, so the topic, I believe we talked about 3 virtual hybrid events that will impact event creators. And I thought, let's talk about event creators, because I think many of us can be under that label of event creators, because everyone wants to do events, but we don't necessarily know how to get to the to achieve the goal that we want to. So we're here today to share that experience, because these are the 3 trends coming up in this space.
And this is something, that not only has evolved from the perspective of technology, but also how we interact as well, right? And especially, and I'm sure you're going to get to it too, I've noticed that when I'm doing events, and a lot of them have become hybrid, and I know that we had dropped that in the title too, is that when you're interacting with a live audience in person, and you're interacting with a live audience online as well, you're trying to to figure out how to provide an experience that works
Yeah.
for both. And you're really juggling a lot. And sometimes I feel like, even now today, I feel like I'm juggling a lot. I'm producing, I'm hosting, I'm listening for cues. And then when you throw, other aspects into it, it's like, yeah, event creators are really doing a lot. So how
Yep.
can we make that kind of like run more smoothly for them, maybe?
Yes.
So I
And
think we're gonna.
bringing
Yeah,
oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
Sorry.
I was to say bringing those audiences together is a challenge, right? It's something that, people look to the technology and say, how does your technology do
Yeah.
this? Well, yes, the technology is developed in a way that you can bring audiences together. However, the technology is just half the battle or half of the equation.
Hmm.
It's a big part of it is planning and execution as well. You can't just rely on the technology to do all the work for you. The technology is there as a tool to help you facilitate the vision that you
Right.
want to bring in. And it's something that I tell people when we first launched the events side of our platform, the virtual events side of our platform, we had a bit of a learning curve. And we were thinking, yeah, if you have an event, host it on our platform. And we realized not every event is well suited for our platform.
Yep.
So I went back to my
Right.
thinking and planning and execution and how I've put on events and hosted them in my previous life and in-person type of context. And I said, okay, well, it's got to be about the strategy and the planning as well. And you need to start with that. What is your purpose? What are your goals? What are your objectives? How do you
Hmm.
want this? What do you want this experience to look and feel like? And then find a technology that helps you facilitate that experience. Not every technology does everything. And so you're going to have to find the right one to help meet your needs. And that's a big part of the battle. You can't just
Oh,
rely
that's
on
a
the
big
Yeah.
technology.
part.
You can't
Huge.
just rely on the planning. They have to come together strategically to make that experience come to life.
Absolutely. I agree. So I think Shannon and I agree we're gonna share three things and I'm gonna let her kick off. So if you're thinking like, okay, what are these three trends you're talking about, for us event creators to create virtual or hybrid events? So I'm gonna let Shannon kick us off.
Yeah. So we did have three things, and one of which that I want to start with is we're already talking about is virtual events going mainstream, right? We were, as an industry, the events industry was really kind of hesitant to move into virtual because, hey, I'm a communication nerd. I get it. In person just really can't be replicated no matter how hard we try. There's some intangible things there that you will never be able to replace about shaking someone's hand. When I first launched in Captive, I someone told me, yes, the handshake is mightier than the mouse click. And I'm like, yes, I love that, right?
Hmm.
Because you can't replace that. But there's a lot that we can do with the technology. And COVID really forced the industry into adopting virtual events. It was, pivot or die kind of moment with the virtual
Right.
event, with the events industry. And so people had to learn to adopt these things. They had to figure out what solutions were out there and how to use these solutions. They had to figure out how to plan an engaging virtual experience because it's very different than planning an in-person experience. And so this has now gone mainstream. Virtual events are the new thing. It doesn't mean in-person events won't come back. They're already starting to make a comeback and they're waning and waxing as COVID's waning and waxing. Um, but it's a new trend, and the future is that there's always going to be a hybrid component. We are seeing that data everywhere. We are seeing that feedback all over the place, that now that people have realized they can expand their audience beyond just, hey, whoever can make it here in person, if you can't make it, sorry, you're left out. They're adding that virtual component. They're reaching a wider audience. They're becoming more global, and this is affecting events in a lot of ways, not only from the planning and execution perspective, because planning a hybrid event is like planning two events. You have your in-person experience, your virtual experience, and then you have to layer on how to connect the two, as we mentioned. But this has really become the way, and it's not going to go away because, like I said, there's a lot of reasons, but a few of the big reasons are you can reach a wider audience, you can go global, you can include people that previously weren't included. You also have a lot of data and analytics that the technology gives us,
Yep.
whereas before there were some black holes in how much data and analytics we could collect and how effective that was in the in-person space. So those are two really big benefits of having this virtual component uh, go and how it's going to move into the future with hybrid. There's always going to be that virtual component now.
I love when Shannon is actually singing the things that I said almost a decade ago, right? So remember this, Julia, when I started live streaming and broadcasting, of course, in the space of streaming and broadcasting, I used to say, well, you can reach more people. And people look at me like, yeah, but we're fine. We'll be doing in-room events. Yeah, we're fine. I'm like, okay, but people were
Right.
taking to social media. People were learning how to use social media. We're so like, in trend at that time. So, and I said, I guess I was ahead of my game, but I think I was very, very in tune with how we as human beings show up for one another, right? Because there was
Mm,
lack of time. People wanted to be in a space that is safe, and a lot of things determine this mainstream. Actually, which event, the way I'm looking at it, has been here for a long time. It's just that a matter of the times that we live in is just become more prominent, especially after the pandemic. So, hey, if many of you were in rooms with me almost a decade ago, and I kept saying, well, I meet people all over the world in 30 seconds, and they look at me
right.
like, what do you mean, girl? And yeah, we're fine. We love our in-person events. I told you so.
And a lot of people are saying now, right? A lot of them are like, well, we've been online. We're going back and forth to in-person events, and we still want to keep our audience that we've had online. We still want to have
Yes.
people from, like you said, around the world, around the states, outside of, we're all three of us are in Connecticut, I think.
Yeah.
Outside of Connecticut, we want to keep engaging those same people. How do
Mm-hmm.
we do that? And at the same time, um, like I said, we and Shannon, you said it perfectly, right? It's actually more like three events, because it's the in-person event, the hybrid event, and then the connection. Like, how do we keep making that connection with both audience?
Yep.
Definitely, hybrid event is not only it's a really on-site event, the live event, and also the virtual component. People often say, "Oh, oh yeah, we can do it." Oh, I promise you,
Yeah.
when you actually do a quality and successful hybrid event, you will learn to build new muscles. I promise you
Mhm.
that.
Yep.
It's
And
true.
one of the things that is a big component of that is you can't just expect to live stream in whatever you're doing in person and keep that virtual audience engaged, because then they're just staring at a screen watching, especially if they're really long drawn out type sessions, which is fine if you have educational needs and things like that. But you have to find new ways to engage your audience. So you need someone moderating the chat. You need different
Mhm.
things to happen in the virtual space that go above and beyond just streaming the content to them, so that they feel like they're part of the event, that they feel immersed in it, that they're not just staring at a screen watching a playback or a stream,
Yep.
right? So
Right.
you want it to be more of an experience. So you have to think beyond just how do I stream this to my audience, right? At home, take the in-person stream it there. You're missing all those interaction components. You're missing sitting in the chair next to someone and having a sidebar conversation. You're missing walking the halls. You're missing going into the exhibitor hall and walking around. You're missing those
Yeah.
just
Yep.
collisions that happen.
Yes.
And so you have to think about, in the virtual experience, how do I create those collisions? How do I
Yeah.
create that excitement? How do I get people engaging and interacting not only with each other, but with the event, with the content, with the speakers, all of that stuff, to make it exciting and immersive for the at home audience. You have to layer that on top and think about that. It's a
Mhm.
whole additional experience.
And Shannon is not only at home audience, and I remember to use this in a lot of my past live broadcast conversations, and people used to look at me weird, but I said, I promise you guys, many of us fall in this category, right? So when I started doing the hybrid, a big part of it, I'm like, well, I felt like I was the only one in the room trying to gather people together, right? And I felt like I was the only passionate one trying to give value and share value. And, of course, at that time, Julia and Shanna, if you
Yeah.
remember, we had that meetup.com app, and it was so popular, blah, blah, blah. But people had this somehow we came to a culture where people RSVP and didn't show up. And I'm like, why? Right? Because you said you're attending, but you're not attending. And I see the that people lead busy lives, dropping off kids at school, maybe doctor's appointment,
Yeah.
but they do want to consume that content, that value. But if we did something virtual, I always said we all have a play button. There's always a replay. You can always come back to it. And I
Yeah.
say, and it doesn't matter where you are. You can be on a toilet seat. You bring one device. You bring two devices. I really don't care. And you're one of those people out there. Raise your hands, right? And you're like, I'm so FOMO because Julia's on right now. Or, Dr. DeVille's in the house. Hey, Dr. DeVille, good morning.
Yeah,
Oh, that's another rock star out there. But like I used to say and joke about it, and people look at me weird almost a decade ago. I'm like, come on. I'm sure you don't not only have one device, you probably have two, like me. We don't do magazines anymore in the bathroom. Hello. Most of us are like this, right? So what I'm trying to say, we are trying to leverage our time, and here's a great example of how we're still making that connection. So post the in-person event. So I said it.
And that kind of leads us into a second trend that we wanted to talk about, right? Which is that everybody's an event planner now.
Yep.
Right. And so with VE platforms, virtual event platforms, making the technology so accessible and so easy to use. Some of them require you to submit requirements and they build out a whole virtual experience for you. But then there's a whole nother set of platforms like in Captives that are a DIY type thing where you can literally come on and set up all your branding, all your sessions, everything on your own. So there's a plethora of DIY platforms out there. And so basically people that weren't event planners before are like, hey, I'm getting in on this mix, and they're planning events and executing events and doing them. And so, Zef, can you talk a little bit more about, I know as an event producer, you see a lot of different things with this. Can you talk a little bit more about the whole DIY movement and how everyone's becoming an event planner and how that affects your strategy and stuff? Because we're already talking a little bit about the strategy side of it.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I feel like, before I really went deep diving into the event space, which I never really saw myself an events person, never got formal training. It's all out of my own experience. But what I can share with you folks out there is this, right? So when I started doing a lot of the events on my own, so that was DIY, right? I had to learn a lot of technology. And there are times people told me like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. But I realized technology is such a big part of what we do, right? So technology, like you said earlier, Shannon, is just one part of the whole, journey of just doing virtual events. Before the pandemic, people looked at Zoom and go like, huh, what? Right? Like, I don't want to be on camera. I mean, some of you are out there. I've met some of you out there. You go like, no, we'll never be on camera. No, don't like it. No,
gotta turn it
right?
off. Gotta
never be
on
camera. Yeah, I prefer in-person meetings. I get it. I love the high fives. I love the fist bumps. I love the hugs. But then
the elbow bumps now.
Yeah, the boom boom, right? But the next best things, right, to Julia and I meeting is basically online. And not only if she's in New Haven, if she's in Ireland, right, visiting her cousin's family and stuff, I can go like, hi, Julia, we're still in the neighborhood. I think, yeah. So when I started doing the DIYs, I realized, wow, there's a lot of other moving parts, the dynamics of the technology. The biggest challenge right now, I think, for many of folks out there who are event creators, if you plan, create, produce your own events, right? I know you may use a few, standard tools. And Shannon and I have a show, we call it In Captivating Virtual Events, the talk show series. One of our series, we talked about event platforms, right? And learning how to use or leverage event technology to create these memorable, engaging, and magical experiences. This is the component that is the hardest to do, because what you're trying to mimic in a way is like if you're a host, you play a host at a holiday dinner, like a family dinner, you want your audiences to have a great, memorable holiday experience, right? So you try to okay, are the desserts ready? Did we have the entrees? You set up the tablescape and all that stuff. With the event technology that we have now, we can do literally a lot of things at it. I mean, innovation. I mean, just think about creative ideas. And however, the one part people miss in trying to create this memorable, fun, magical experience for the attendees or audiences is what is basically there's a lot of logistics to invent technology. It's kind of hard to do it alone, right? Even you have two people sometimes, like in a broadcast. Julia and Shannon can tell you, we're looking at
Oh, yeah.
5 different screens. We're looking at 5 different things to just like
Do you see my
coordinate.
eyeballs going bing bong, bing bong, bing bong?
Yeah, and we're like, wait, there's comments coming in. Oh, pop up. Okay. Oh, wait, I have to put the banner on right now. That's just talking about one component, which is production.
Right.
And for many of us, know production is now becoming a big part. And like, oh, now you got it. Right. So this is where the engagement happens. And I think that's just one part. But setting up how do people register, I've even had some like tech dudes tell me like, I don't know what she did, but she just did it. I'm like, it takes time to do the DIY,
Right.
yes, but eventually you realize you'll need more than one body to help you run an event that is successful, memorable, engaging, and kind of magical. Does that make sense? Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
That
so.
makes a ton of sense.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, that's my
and
experience in producing.
people are learning as they go, and people are getting better and better at it. And one of the things we talked about on our show that you mentioned, Zef, on In Captivating Virtual Events was the difference between a virtual events platform and a meeting platform.
Yes.
And so you
That was
need
where
to
I was going.
understand there is a difference. And people come into virtual events platform expecting to pay the price that they pay for a meeting platform, but there's so much more to a virtual events platform. And so it's not just about pricing, but it's also about what you're able to deliver, the experience you're able to create when you come out of a meeting platform and into an events platform. Likewise, for example, within Captive, people have asked, hey, can I just host my meetings on here? It's like, yeah, sure you can, but it's a little bit of overkill, right? You don't need it. So it's finding the right tool for the right purpose. And again, with COVID, there's been an explosion of these virtual events platforms. And so there's a lot of options out there for you to choose from. It's aligning the experience you want to create with not only your budget, but also the technology that you're choosing to meet that. And so it's really important to look at all those things. And as Zef said, trying to plan an event with one or two people, can you do it? Yeah, you're going to put in a lot of hours. A lot of times there's going to be a big learning curve. And a lot of people are learning and getting really good with these DIY platforms at putting them on. There is, however, the opportunity to add to your team, to hire someone like Zef to come in and do production for you and just make it so much easier and elevate it to the next level. There's an opportunity to work with different event marketing, event planning, event strategy companies to help you strategize and execute this properly. And some of the event tech firms, ours included, what we do is we also provide those white glove services. So if you need someone to be an extension of your team, let's say you are a small but mighty team and you just know, though, we need the extra help, talk to whoever you're working with from a technology partner and see if they provide those services. One of the reasons we provide them is we find that a lot of our customers do have small teams and they need that additional help, whether it's setting things up on the platform for them or helping with the planning and the strategy and the scheduling and all of that. And so making sure you have the right help when you're going into this, since everybody's an event planner now, is really, really crucial, because it can A, make your life a lot easier, but then B, it can just elevate your event to the next level if you have the right resources at your disposal.
Absolutely. And especially if you're looking to level up and continue to grow in what you do, especially with virtual or hybrid events, that's something that you could really count on moving forward. It's something almost essential that every event planner, every event creator has to consider. And I want to do a quick shout out to Dr. Davia Shepard, who's actually watching right now. And she goes, I think the team that you work with is the most important part, to be honest. The platform is important, but the work that she's done with Shannon and I, she's enjoyed it. So I just want to say thank thank you, because I'm going to tell you something. Magic happens when you truly believe in what you do and you
Mhm.
can actually verbalize and kind of deliver that in a most passionate way. And my experience with Dr. Devere Shapit was, I didn't expect her, getting into the virtual events technology space and doing her events there. But, all I did was comment on one of her Ladies Power Lunch segments, and I just showed her, this is what I'm using right now. And, these are what I'm using for my clients right now. She got like, oh, FOMO, I need this now, and her group and her organization is growing right now. The point to this is, Shannon, you mentioned our show earlier, and Julia has dropped the link in the comments, whether
Yep,
you're on
I
YouTube
have.
Live or Facebook, right? Shannon and I co-host a show called and Captivating Virtual Events. Is produced by my company. We do virtual events live. One of the things that Shannon mentioned, you mentioned about meeting tools versus virtual events tools. Folks, if you haven't learned that right now, learn it right now, because there is a huge difference in creating or producing a virtual meeting, like just, hey, I'm going to do it on one online meeting tool. Doesn't matter what your choice of meeting platform, it could be anyone that you're using right now. But that's a difference between that creating a DIY experience on the meeting platform versus a virtual event platform. And if you don't know what that is, put I want to know more in the comments so that Shannon and I can reach out to you and share a little bit more about her platform. Boom. So,
I love the booms.
yes. So
And
I think,
we were talking about community,
yes,
and like, well, we're really talking about teams, but that kind of makes me think about community, especially when I think of Dr. Davia and the
Mhm.
amazing community she has built with
she
the Ladies
rocks at
Power
building
Lunch.
community. Yeah.
She is just, they're just those folks that are magnets for supporting one another, for supporting others and building others up and building a great community around them. And that is Dr. Davia, and the people she surrounds herself with are no different. And she has just built this fantastic community. And so one of the trends that we're starting to see too is that it used to be an event was come and done, right? And you fly out to this big conference center, you go, you meet people, you have a great time, you learn a lot, maybe you make some connections that you follow up with afterward. That's the goal, right? Is to make those strong connections and build some relationships for after the fact. Maybe you discover some great new products and services, and then you leave and things start to fizzle off. One of the great
Mhm.
things about the virtual space is that it doesn't have to just end when the event ends. If you plan appropriately and you do this correctly, you can keep people coming online and engaging and continue to put great content out and build a community in these online spaces. And Dr. Davia, who's tuned in right now, has done a fantastic job of doing just that, having that regular cadence and bringing people on and using events as a way of not only sharing information and bringing people together one and done, but keeping people together and creating that community in the virtual space. And so that's another big trend we're starting to see, is that the event isn't just the day of or the days of the event. The engagement now is before. You have little trickle things that get people excited and get them signing in and get them engaging with you, during, which is the big major portion of the event, and then after, which is continuing to have ways to keep people coming back, coming online and engaging with you. So that engagement gets more drawn out now, and because of
Mhm.
that you can start to build community around it. So I think that's another great trend that we're really starting to see.
Absolutely. And when I did mention this, right? That I feel like I am such a godmother for the hybrid events. I don't know if that's always a thing, but when I started my events, when I transitioned from the in-person to virtual, one of the things I thought about, like, okay, now that you attended my event once a month, okay, great. Where does the relationship building happen?
Mhm.
Hello, at that time social media was big, and Julia, you used to talk a lot about, this is where we can continue the conversation.
Yep.
And when we talk about engagement, is such a big word right now. Every event technology, everyone in the event space is talking about, how do we do engagement? And for
Yeah.
many people, it's so one-way street engagement. They think about, oh, just during the event, but we're talking engagement as in the whole big aspect of it, which
Right.
includes pre-event engagement, during event, and post-event. It's just like, in those days, all our super connector gurus will say, hey, okay, now you meet people, that's the pre-event. Now you talk to people at the event, that's the in during event engagement. Then after that, you kind of, reach out with a follow-up, right? Whether it's email, phone call, meetup, coffee
Right.
chats. So in the virtual event slash hybrid event space, many event technology, they're looking to build this engagement as best as possible. But the feature is just one thing, right? But how do we actually leverage these features in the event technology to really create that community? And I used to say, okay, now I went back those days. Remember, DMS met in person, right, Julia? And
Yeah.
after that, people go home. Know what? Because we are human beings, we forget, and I would just like go home, done, right? There's no
We go
relationship.
do our own
We
thing. Yeah.
listen, back then I kind of like stink at doing follow-ups, but we have the technology now to keep us,
Yeah.
in tune, in check, build relationships. And that's why it's so huge to have a community that can support one another at one place to go before the event, during the event, and
Right.
a place to connect after the event. So
And
that's big.
you and Shannon had both mentioned, like the branding of it, the strategy of it, the planning of it, that sort of thing. And, one of the reasons why Digital Media Sync has been around for as long as it has, and me personally, I have been able to connect with so many people and build like actual friendships. Zach, you and I are friends.
Yep.
Raheem Nelson and I are friends.
Yep.
And, we're colleagues. We are always throwing ideas back and forth to each other, right? So that's just a whole other level of relationship. And if we don't, your favorite word, Zach, evolve, right? So it's
Yep.
not just the
Yep.
technology, you're evolving the technology, you're evolving the relationships, you're you're looking for connections not only with people but across all the aspects to continue doing that
Yep.
engagement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a great segue for us to kind of touch on what Shannon and I are also doing. So this is a great example of we're talking about virtual event, supporting community building. And one of the things I keep saying, I used to like, back almost a decade ago when I started in the virtual event space, I already started with, having guests from Israel, from South Africa. And people look at me like, how do you do that? I'm like, well, I just basically 30 seconds meet up, whether it's an interview, talk
Right.
show, whatever. And I like these people. Let's connect, right? And I continue the conversation because it's so easy. We have the technology to just like, hello, right? Bye, hi, send a follow-up video message, audio message. It keeps it real. And I must tell you, I don't know if any of you are active event creators and planners who are doing virtual events, especially. Have you met people that you've not met in person and you've worked with them and you trust
Mhm.
them? Oh, I'm having goosies, hashtag Zef Goosies. Dr. Davia, you know this. You've never met them in person, but you're able to trust. You're able to bring them as great collaborative partners. You trust them maybe more than you trust your family members. Hey, that's the truth. Because you show up daily for them, right?
Mhm.
Shannon and I, since we started, doing a lot of projects together, we're like, good morning. Okay, good night. Good morning. If that's what you choose to do, that's great. But I have great friends and now collaborative partners all over the world. I feel like I'm a collective of virtual event folks who are rocking it out in this world and making changes in the world. So, I meet people from all over the world, gives me the opportunity to learn from other people, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm traveling all over the world. That said, Shannon and I, one example we're doing is putting together an International Women's Day coming up in April this year, an event that we kind of tie in into International Women's Day, and we want to have an international presence. People look at me like, but there's so many time zones. Yeah, so what? I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, if I have to get up at 4 in the morning, I'll get up 4 in the morning, just like our counterparts in Australia or Southeast Asian. If they have to run a segment at 4 in the morning, they'll do it because we show up when we're needed, when we commit to it. So that's what virtual events technology, have given us the chance to do, is meet people, learn from other cultures, and I'm having Zaf Goosey. So this is where I think talking about what's trending, and how it's going to impact your event, you just have to try new things and give it a chance. If you don't give it a chance, you'll never know if it works for you. Boom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
boom.
And something you mentioned that I just want to really reiterate and hammer down on, because we've mentioned this a few times throughout this, is it's not just about the technology you choose. It's about your strategy and your execution and how those things come together. Because
Mhm.
if you don't do that in the correct way, if you just are going for, well, this one has 50 features that I can implement in the technology, that should create engagement, right? Well, if you haven't built an experience that drives people to use the features and use them in the right way, then they're not going to really know what to do. And then all those features just become a distraction. So you need to think through those things too.
Oh
And
my
that's
God, so
where
true.
the community, the collaboration, the teamwork behind putting on one of these events is really important, so that as we propel into the future, and a trend we haven't even talked about today, which we need more time for and we'll have to do another show
Yeah,
on, is
you'll
the
have to do another
metaverse.
show.
Yeah, it's the
Absolutely.
metaverse and how the metaverse is shaping the future of how we communicate virtually, digitally, immersing us into new spaces, and the pros and cons of all of that right now. So there's
We
a
should probably have Julia at our show next and do that,
You can do
Shannon.
it.
absolutely, we need to talk metaverse. Who wants to
Yeah.
hear about metaverse? Drop it in the
Oh,
comments.
yeah.
So yeah, and I think in the you dropped the link, right, Julia, for the show. So Shannon and I have been
For the
doing
show.
done, yeah, 10 series last year in 2021, and captivating virtual events. We talk a talk show series, just talk about how to create virtual or hybrid events that lead to yes with the dollar signs
Mhm.
connections. Because we feel that it's really important to understand how to create the experience, not only how to leverage technology, but create that experience. Because we all have been sitting at the screens for days or hours, right? And we go, yeah, this is another boring meeting, right? So there's a difference between the meeting experience versus the virtual event experience.
Yeah.
um,
Right.
you just want people to stay in their seats and be a part of the community. There's a science to it, there's a format to it. It just takes a
And
little
art
time
to it.
learning. Yeah, so
Yeah.
elbow grease, and that's what I'm talking about. So yeah, I think Julia dropped it in the
I
comments as
dropped it
a
in one more
link.
time. Yep. So the
Yeah,
bit.ly link in captivating virtual events. I
and
want to thank you. Go ahead.
yeah. And Shannon, do you want to just quickly say, because we are doing the International Women's Day, do you want to share something with the audiences?
Yeah, and you might be wondering, International Women's Day, isn't that in March? Why are you doing it in April?
Yeah,
Well, there's a number of reasons for it. One of which is there are so many events happening on
yeah,
International Women's Day that we want to be able to create this international experience and have people be available for it, available to speak at it, available to attend it. And
Mhm.
all of March really is International Women's Month. So we're looking at bringing it towards the end of March, early April. And so
Yeah.
we have got a great schedule lined up with lots of different tracks, and we've got an international planning committee that we've brought together to
oh my
think
God,
through
so
these
true.
things, and we're coming up with all these new and different and creative ways to execute the event as well. And so we're really excited about this, and anybody that wants to be part of this, to help plan it, to help execute it, to speak at it, to sponsor all of that kind of stuff, we invite you, we welcome you. Drop a yes in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. This is not something we're doing for profit. This is something that we are going to be donating the proceeds back to a nonprofit. We are working on partnering up with a nonprofit that supports women. And so more details are to come on that as well. So we're not here selling you something. We're here to, our goal for this is to help create a community of women, to help uplift women, empower women, educate women, and really celebrate women through this event, and do it in a way that not only happens during the event, but keeps that engagement, builds a community and a collaborative where we can all work together and expand globally with one another as women. Did I miss anything important there, Zeph?
You're God. Yeah.
It looks
Julia,
like you
thank you
covered
so much for
everything.
having us.
Yeah, I mean, that was like a very well packed 45 minutes that we just did right there. And I just want to mention that I'll send the links over to you, Zeph and Shannon, so we can share this out even more. And that's like one of the things too, right? We have this this library I have the library for the Digital Media Sync with all of the episodes that I'm doing, being captivating virtual events. You have that available, and you can continue that conversation and reach back into that information to build more conversations. And I just love that, capability as well. That we have that available to us. So once again, thank you so much for being guests on this Digital
Thanks for
Media
having us.
Sync.
This has been
It
fun.
was just so much fun, and it wasn't captivating.
Yay!
Thank you so much, and
Hashtag.
hashtag and captain. See, now you have your hashtag. Thank you so much, and I'm definitely going to bring you back on. And thank
you for having us.
If you are watching this show after we have broadcast please go ahead and comment. I'm always looking at the comments. Well, I feel so naked right now.
You can throw up one of these.
Yeah.
Oh,
you can throw one of these, right?
The original emoji.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for having us, and we continue to support EMS because I think it's a great show that we bring value, that you bring value to your audiences, and if there's anything that we can share, because I think there's a lot to share. We can't cover it in 45 minutes for sure, but reach out to us.
Right, and I always calling Zef back, and now we're like, I have somebody else I can call back too, and we can have fun on air.
Community.
That's right.
Exactly. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Have a great day.